I got the remedy. I got the perfect lyrical remedy.
Hello, my fellow reprobates. Wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today. New sunglasses, obviously. Prescription, polarised, splashed out a little bit of extra money. I think they make me look a bit Lazarus Churchyard, the immortal cyborg who wanted to die and couldn't in some of Warren Ellis's earlier work. Well worth a read if you can find it. There's a collected edition, a bit pricey on Amazon these days, so shop around, but pretty good. And there's worse things to look like, just the beard is the only difference. And looking like a relatively early post-cyberpunk work seems appropriate to the times we live in. I'm working on a retro clone of a certain skirmish game, and I wanted something generic I could use to take demonstration photographs and stuff. So I picked up some knockoff Lego figures, a James Bondian one there, I think, that I could use. So Chinese Bride, which is quite cool. And there's some SWAT team members with guns and stuff in the box somewhere. So maybe I'll go ahead and bump that up the list of things I'm due to write. Picked up a Pinhead Funko. Not much of a Funko collector. I did really want Clytus, and I wanted the evil bad guy in Big Trouble in Little China, David Lopan. I wanted Lopan, but apparently those are a limited run and they're hideously expensive everywhere I've been able to find them, so I settled for Pinhead from Hellraiser before they retcon it in the new film. The UK Games Expo Fallout is still rolling on, and it's reached... Well, it was already in a lot of the sort of professional games creator communities, but it's kind of back there now and being discussed at more sort of meta level, like how do you write horror, how do you play horror, what sort of safety tools need to be in place at the table, convention policies, that sort of thing. And it's just horrendous and crushingly disappointing to see how intolerant and one-sided and vicious and weak-willed and spineless so much of the gaming community has become when it comes to this. Whenever I find a group of creative people who willingly and happily accept censorship, well, if I had a soul, if I believed in a soul, a little piece of it would die every time that happens. I mean, if you want to understand me, for example, all you really have to understand is that I take that axiom that's attributed to Voltaire, but wasn't him. I disagree with everything that you say, but I would fight to the death to protect your right to say it. If you want to understand me in a lot of these contexts, that's really all you need to know. And yet, I'm this pariah for basically expressing this. And that's come up. People aren't attacking the arguments that I'm making. I've held one of the UKGE organisers to task for his decision making around what happened, and express my dismay at the way in which these things have been enforced in the past and in the future. But a lot of what gets thrown at me when I try to talk about this stuff is essentially ad hominem or poisoning the well. Because I have this bad reputation. I don't think it's deserved. I'm none of the things these people like to say I am. I'm not racist, not sexist, not transphobic. I have nuanced positions on a lot of these issues, and we live in an age without nuance, and I think that's the base of the problem. The other problem is people can just kind of cut you out of their lives entirely at the click of a button, never get to see your refutations, never get to hear your point of view. And if you're encountering them anew, and these rumours and so on have been going on in the background for years, unchallenged because of the blocks and everything, you're starting on the back foot from the get-go, really. So what have I learned, I thought, about being mobbed on social media? What nuggets of wisdom can I impart about this situation or these situations. You know, should you find yourself on the receiving end of it? And the grim, no pun intended, reality of it is that there really isn't much that you can do. These things move fast, very fast. So unless you can get out in front of things very quickly and give your version of events, your version of what people are saying, you have no chance. Most people aren't going to listen to what you have to say anyway. They're going to listen to the accusations, right? And everything is done, dusted, and settled on social media within maybe a week at the most. That's kind of the outside. With the UKGE event, I started out talking to the guy at the centre of it because I wanted to find out for my own peace of mind what actually happened, because something smelled wrong about what was going on, right? And I got his side of the argument, and now people are saying, oh, you went ahead without permission, you know, you did all this stuff. Well, I got the interview with his agreement. I put it up as quickly as possible because I know how quickly these things move. And now apparently it's someone who lacks apparently an understanding of linear time seems to have got those events put back to front, because the guy did come back to me 2 days after the event and say, can you hold off? By which point it was too late. And in many ways it was already too late to tackle what was being said and done about him in the first place. Getting out as quickly as possible was the best possible thing to tackle that. And that is, I think, a rule you need to cleave to. Get your side out as quickly as possible, even if it's imperfect, to try and capture as many other people and get as many people to see your side of things before the court of public opinion, all hail his majesty, King Twitter, before that's settled. You probably only have a 24 to 48 hour window to really do that, and then it's diminishing returns up to a week, by which point it's probably too late. So I'm essentially still being condemned for something that happened 7 years ago, right? And is based on a misunderstanding and people not reading past a headline. That is what everything else since stems from, and that's what's made me so vociferous against online mobs. Some people think my involvement in Gamergate is somehow ironic in that sense, but Gamergate wasn't really the mob in that instance. None of this behaviour that they point to was ever really linked to Gamergate, but was to the opposition. There are always anonymous trolls out there looking for drama in order to make a fuss, and it's easy to pin that on one side or the other, but it's just not true. So you can get out in front of things, but people still aren't going to listen, even if you do it quickly. So just having it out there is about the best you can do, and then after a certain point, I think you just have to kind of give up. Right? People are going to see you that way, but anyone who is that credulous, that stupid, that unwilling to consider all sides of an issue, why do you want them in your life anyway? And it's difficult, right? I fail constantly to maintain my distance. Whenever I put out a new product or something, I do name search and I product name search because I want to see what the reception is, and almost inevitably I find some people slagging me off somewhere, and it does get on my wick because it's so much of it is based on nonsense. But what can you do? Nothing, really. There is this secular notion of original sin underlying all this. If you happen to be white and male and cisgender and whatever else, you're already guilty. And then an accusation, no matter how flimsy, is considered valid because of that. It's deeply racist, it's deeply sexist. I hesitate to use the term, but it's deeply cisphobic, if you will. So there's no winning in that court of public opinion. What a lot of people are starting to do is to go to the courts. The UKGE person, they got legal advice. outside of the gaming sphere. There are people in computer gaming and other arenas taking people over things that have been said or done about them. There's been some trolls who are being taken to court now, I think, over it's either Discord or Twitch, one or the other. It happens. More and more people who are being tarred and feathered, metaphorically speaking, on social media are turning to legal recourse. Now, in the immediate term, this means nothing, because everything's done, dusted, sorted, your career's in ruins, you know, whatever else, within 48 hours, right? That's all over. But if people manage to successfully sue, if they get enough rulings that go against the mob, and if enough people get hit with punitive damages and so on, we might start to see a cultural shift away from this, but I'm not holding my breath. The big example in the gaming sphere that most people will know is Zack Sabbath, who was heavily involved in a lot of Lamentations of the Flame Princess stuff, split up with his wife of some years. She came out on social media. I don't think there was much more than a couple of tweets initially. I haven't seen much else. Might have been a blog post later on, accusing him of spousal abuse and various other issues. And because Zack had ticked off a lot of people, because he's very defensive of his reputation, very defensive of his friends, very abrasive. If you think I'm bad, he's like me, dialed up to 11. Because he already had all this baggage, people were more than ready to condemn him without any evidence, with just a claim to go on, as a result of which he's lost a lot of money, he's lost a lot of involvement in other projects. He'll be okay, he's got other stuff that he does, but reputationally it hasn't been very good for him at all. It's been a very long time since that came out, and he's resorting to the courts. Not that his ex is going to have much to offer him, and it's just going to make him look like more of a bad guy. But this is the recourse that more and more people seem to feel that they're forced to. Not that it's available to everyone, because it's expensive, and the laws around libel and slander in the US, at least, are very weak, and elsewhere they're possibly too strong. But it's too late by then. You know, the court takes a very long time to chew through these things, even in civil cases. So it's a downer, but there really is nothing you can do unless you can act really quickly, get your side of things out as fast as possible, and unless a few of these kind of example legal cases set some sort of precedent and shift the culture, there's really not a lot you can do. So what you do have control over is yourself, and you can do what I try to do and fail to do, which is to cut yourself off from these horrendous people. Don't let yourself get into an echo chamber, but some people are just beyond any value in engaging with anymore, right? And at the end of the day, you know yourself what you've done and what you haven't done, and the only person you have to be able to live with at the end of the day is yourself. And if you know in your heart that you haven't done anything wrong, then fuck what anyone else thinks. Sorry I couldn't be more help, but this is the bitter voice of wise experience. Zang,